A golden retriever drenched in blood walks into a small-town police station, carrying a newborn baby. No one knows where he came from, or who the baby belongs to. The blood isn't his, the baby isn't hurt, but someone out there is missing, or dead. As secrets unravel, a loyal dog becomes the key to exposing a powerful man's darkest truth. One woman's final hope wasn't a call for help. It was 4 paws and a silent mission. The fluorescent lights hummed softly inside the Willow Creek Police Department, casting a sterile glow over the near-empty station. Officer Tessa Grady was halfway through her nightly routine, sipping lukewarm coffee and reviewing patrol logs, when the front door creaked open. Her brow furrowed. It was well past midnight. No footsteps, no voices, just the faint jingle of a metal tag and the quietest whimper of something. Living. She stood up, her hand instinctively resting near her radio. A golden retriever limped into the lobby. His thick fur was soaked in dark, sticky blood, glistening under the lights. In his mouth, gently cradled between his teeth, was a newborn baby, silent, motionless, swaddled in a dirt-stained towel. For a breathless second, time slowed. The mug slipped from Tessa's hand and shattered. Sergeant Nolan Reyes stepped out from the back, alerted by the noise, and froze mid-step. "Is that a baby?" he whispered, disbelief tightening his throat. Without a sound, the dog laid the infant down on the reception desk's faded cushion, nudging it softly with his nose. A sharp cry pierced the silence. Alive. Chaos erupted. Officers swarmed, a paramedic team was dispatched, and Detective Lyle Bennett, the seasoned lead investigator, arrived in under 10 minutes. He took one look at the blood-drenched dog and the squirming child, and his gut tightened. "No collar?" he asked. "Just this," Tessa replied, holding up a mangled leather strap. "Tag's missing. There's some kind of burn mark. Numbers, maybe." The baby was rushed to the local hospital, stable, but dehydrated. The dog, temporarily caged for observation, didn't resist. His amber eyes followed the child until the moment they disappeared behind the ambulance doors. Lyle bent beside the cage, studying the retriever's calm but weary face. "Where did you come from, boy?" he muttered, almost to himself. Whispers of the story began trickling into town. A blood-covered dog, a mystery baby, no injuries on either, no known attack in the area, no missing person report that fit. Nothing added up. The officers didn't speak it aloud, but each of them felt the same deep unease settle in their bones. They were no longer dealing with a normal case. Something had happened in the dark woods outside town, something none of them were ready to uncover. Detective Lyle Bennett stood in the dim operations room, eyes glued to a map of Willow Creek spread across the wall. Red pins marked possible points of origin for the dog. Back alleys, open fields, broken fences. The blood trail had vanished, after a few blocks, washed away by earlier rainfall. Cooper, the golden retriever, was cleaned and examined at the local vet. The results were confounding. Not a single wound on his body, no signs of a fight. And the blood covering his fur, it wasn't his. Tessa entered holding a fresh report. Preliminary analysis says none of the blood belongs to the baby either. "It's human, adult, female." Lyle exhaled through his nose, jaw tightening. "So someone bled out, and the dog saved the baby." The team scoured nearby traffic cameras, focusing on where Cooper was first spotted trotting along Main Street. 2 miles out, in grainy footage, they caught him emerging from the woods along Deer Hollow Trail. Lyle pointed at the screen. "That's our direction. Woods north of town. Miles of farmland. Abandoned property, maybe." Meanwhile, the hospital ran the baby's DNA. Results would take time, but in the meantime, the staff gave the newborn a temporary name, Baby Doe. He was healthy, miraculously unharmed. But his arrival set off a media frenzy. Local reporters swarmed the police department. Social media exploded with theories, some heartfelt, others disturbingly wild. Officer Reagan Harper, freshly transferred from Denver, watched Cooper closely. "He didn't just stumble on that baby," she said to Lyle. "He was sent. Dogs don't do that unless they've been taught to." Lyle gave her a long look. "You think someone trained him for this?" "I think someone trusted him more than they trusted people." That night, Cooper barked relentlessly inside his kennel, staring toward the station's rear exit. Reagan knelt by the bars, heart pounding as the dog's gaze remained fixed, alert, not anxious, but purposeful. "There's something out there," she whispered. Lyle didn't believe in gut feelings, but this wasn't ordinary police work. Nothing about this was routine. With daylight hours wasted and new questions rising faster than answers, he gave the order. "First light. We head into those woods." The hunt had begun, but for what, none of them truly understood. Not yet. A soft wind rustled through the pine trees as morning light filtered into the woods north of Willow Creek. The search team, led by Lyle and accompanied by Reagan, moved carefully through underbrush, their boots sinking slightly into damp soil. Cooper walked ahead, leashless, but never straying far. He moved with purpose, nose to the ground, tail low, not wagging, focused. 2 miles in, they found the remnants of a small, weather-worn barn. The roof sagged inward, and a broken stall door creaked in the breeze. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of rot and mold, but there was something else, something human. In a corner of the barn, partially hidden under a moth-eaten blanket, lay a makeshift bedding nest. Tucked into the straw were a few scattered items: a cracked baby bottle, a woman's sweatshirt stained with old blood, and a small canvas pouch stitched into a piece of Cooper's collar, now clearly cut away. Reagan's fingers trembled as she opened the pouch. Inside, a single page creased and smudged with dried blood. A handwritten note. The ink was faded, but legible. "If you're reading this, I didn't make it. My name is Delaney Hart. My baby's name is Miles. Please protect him. He's innocent. Don't let them take him back." The words hit like a blow to the chest. Lyle stared at the note for a long moment. "She knew she was dying," he said quietly, "and she trusted the dog to get her son to safety." Flashbacks, fragmented and dim, began to form, layered between scenes of the present. A young woman, pale and desperate, cradling her newborn, in the corner of the barn. Cooper beside her, blood on his coat, but not his own. Her voice hoarse and urgent as she whispered into his ear, tying the pouch to his collar. "They'll find us if we stay. You have to go. Take him. Please, Cooper." "Go." Then the sound of a distant engine, footsteps. Her breath quickens. Panic sets in. She presses a kiss to the baby's forehead, wraps him in a towel, and looks into the dog's eyes. "Go." The vision fades. Back in the present, the team stands in stunned silence. Cooper sits by the barn entrance, gaze steady. She knew exactly what she was doing, Reagan whispered, and whoever she was running from still hadn't been found. At Willow Creek Medical, the DNA test came back faster than expected, flagged for expedited federal review. A quiet call from the lab to the station drew Lyle out of a meeting. Within minutes, he was staring at a sealed folder labeled Confidential. When he opened it, his stomach dropped. The baby, Miles, was the biological son of Senator Graham Hollis, a prominent family values politician known for his spotless image and sharp disdain for anything that tarnished his reputation. The mother, Delaney Hart, had been a 23-year-old intern in his Washington office. She'd gone missing 6 months ago. Officially, she'd resigned and left town, but her parents had never heard from her again. Her disappearance had been quietly dismissed. No press, no investigation. Now, her blood had soaked the fur of a golden retriever who walked her infant into a police station across state lines. The revelation rocked the small department. Lyle stared at the family photo on the senator's public profile, his wife, his 2 daughters, smiling, pristine. It was all a lie. "Why hide the baby?" Reagan asked, voice low. "Why let Delaney go off the grid?" Lyle answered without looking up. "Because that baby could destroy him." The news spread like wildfire, starting with a leak from someone inside the hospital. Soon, media vans lined up outside the station. Hollis's press team issued a vague statement about protecting family privacy. But behind closed doors, the senator moved quickly. A federal liaison showed up that afternoon, claiming jurisdiction over the case. Lyle met him in the hallway. "This is a local investigation until I say otherwise." "That baby is the child of a sitting senator," the agent replied coolly. "This isn't your jurisdiction anymore." Tension crackled. Lyle didn't back down. "This baby was abandoned. His mother might be dead. And your senator may be more than just a father. He may be the reason she's gone." Meanwhile, Reagan reviewed Delaney's digital footprint. Social accounts wiped clean, no trace of recent photos, texts abruptly ending months ago. It was as if she'd been erased. At the center of it all sat Cooper, calm and alert, eyes watching everything. What had started as an odd case involving a heroic dog was now unraveling into a political scandal with chilling implications. And the deeper they dug, the clearer it became. Delaney hadn't run. She'd been silenced. The station's atmosphere had shifted. Whispers followed every step, every glance. Lyle was locking horns with federal authorities, and Cooper, the dog who started it all, was now at the center of a bureaucratic standoff. Officers debated whether he should be released or quarantined. Some were convinced he had seen something, maybe even done something. Rumors swirled. Reagan Harper sat outside the holding kennel after hours, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders and a half-empty coffee in her hands. Cooper lay on the other side of the bars, head resting between his paws, gaze fixed on her like he was waiting for her to figure something out. He didn't bark, he didn't growl, but there was urgency in his eyes, an almost human plea. "You're not just a dog," she whispered. "You're a witness." Reagan's background wasn't typical for Willow Creek. Before joining the small-town force, she'd spent years in a behavioral unit working with trauma response animals. She'd seen dogs alert to seizures before they happened, seen them lead search teams to missing people hours after a scent had gone cold. What Cooper was doing didn't feel random. It felt intentional. She reviewed every report again, this time looking not for the obvious, but for what had been missed. Cooper had made deliberate choices. His route to the police station avoided traffic-heavy roads. He stopped at intersections. He waited for lights. That wasn't instinct. That was training. Reagan brought it up to Lyle the next morning. Someone trained Cooper to deliver that baby safely, and someone trusted him more than anyone else, maybe even more than the police. Lyle rubbed his forehead. Delaney. She wasn't just hiding. She was preparing. She knew she didn't have time. But not everyone believed Cooper was innocent. Officer Monroe, a skeptic with a loud opinion, suggested publicly that the blood on the dog could tie him to foul play. It didn't matter that tests proved otherwise. Suspicion had taken root. Reagan stood her ground. He didn't hurt anyone. He saved that child. Lines were being drawn within the department. Trust was cracking. And as tensions mounted, Reagan couldn't shake the feeling that Cooper was still trying to lead them somewhere. They just hadn't been listening close enough. The next morning, Cooper refused his food. Instead, he paced in circles, whining and pawing at the door of his kennel with growing desperation. Reagan watched from her desk, unease creeping up her spine. This wasn't restlessness. It was communication. She made a decision. Against Lyle's hesitant protest, Reagan took Cooper out under the pretense of exercise. But once outside, she removed his leash. "All right, boy," she whispered. "Show me." Without hesitation, Cooper took off, not running, but moving with focused urgency through a narrow trail at the forest's edge. Reagan followed, breath quickening as the terrain turned rough. Over an hour passed before the woods opened into a hidden clearing, and there it was, a weather-worn farmhouse surrounded by rusting wire fences and overgrown grass. The place was quiet, too quiet. Reagan approached the porch, gun holstered but hand steady. Cooper stayed close, tail low, ears up. The front door creaked open with a push. Inside, dust floated in shafts of pale sunlight. A crib sat crooked in the living room, its all sheets stained and torn. The kitchen table was set with mismatched plates, one of them shattered on the floor. But it was the walls that chilled her, a collage of photos taped unevenly, all of Delaney. Some smiling, others bruised. Several marked with dates, a timeline. In a small bedroom, Reagan found a half-buried phone beneath the mattress. The battery was nearly dead, but the screen lit up. 3 saved videos. She played the most recent one. Delaney appeared, eyes puffy, whispering into the camera. "I don't know how much time I have. If you're seeing this, I didn't make it. Graham," he said no one would believe me. "But I have proof. I have Miles. If anything happens to me, follow Cooper. He knows." The screen went black. Heart racing, Reagan backed away. Cooper stood at the door watching her. Not with fear, but with expectation. He had brought her here for a reason. Back in town, time was running out. The truth was in their hands now, but exposing it could destroy more than just reputations. It could cost lives. Back at the station, Reagan placed the recovered phone, the letter, and the video evidence on Lyle's desk. He sat in silence, watching Delaney's final message twice, jaw clenched tighter each time. "She wasn't hiding," he muttered. "She was hunted." They presented the evidence to Internal Affairs that same day. Lyle laid it all out, Delaney's confession, the photos from the farmhouse, the baby's DNA. Reagan spoke with a quiet, unwavering tone. "We believe Senator Hollis orchestrated her disappearance and was planning to bury the existence of the child. But IA wasn't buying it." The agent from D.C. leaned back in his chair, unmoved. "This is circumstantial. A frightened woman, making unsubstantiated claims. You have emotion, not proof." Lyle pushed back hard. "She's dead. The baby's DNA is indisputable. You think she faked her own murder to frame a senator?" The response came like a hammer. "Watch your tone, detective. You're out of your jurisdiction." Meanwhile, the senator's PR machine kicked into overdrive. A public statement dismissed the investigation as a tragic misunderstanding and implied the mother suffered from delusions. News outlets began spinning the story. Social media turned hostile. Rumors of falsified evidence and deep state setups began to dominate the conversation. Worse, Cooper's fate was suddenly on the line. An anonymous complaint, likely from EO. Someone connected to the senator accused the dog of aggression and potential harm. The shelter board scheduled an emergency review. The decision: Cooper would be euthanized within 48 hours unless proven safe. Reagan lost it. They're trying to erase him too, just like they erased her. Public sentiment was shifting, but not fast enough. Until that night, when an unmarked drive arrived at the station. No return address, no explanation. Inside was a video, grainy, but clear, showing Senator Hollis in the farmhouse shouting at Delaney. "You think anyone's going to believe a pathetic intern over me?" It was the final piece. Lyle stared at the screen, stunned. "We go public, tonight." There was no more waiting, no more protocol. The truth had a face now, and a voice they could no longer silence. By morning, the video had been leaked anonymously to every major news outlet. Senator Hollis's voice echoed across the country, rage-filled, unfiltered, unmistakable. Within hours, protests erupted outside his D.C. office. His team scrambled to control the narrative, but it was too late. The damage was irreversible. An emergency hearing was called. Under public pressure, law enforcement was granted access to the senator's private estate, where they found financial records, surveillance logs, and a burner phone filled with messages to an unlisted number, one later linked to a hired security consultant, last seen near Willow Creek. Hollis was arrested on charges of conspiracy, obstruction, and destruction of evidence. But instead of a traditional trial, his legal team filed for a mental competency evaluation, arguing that years of political stress had eroded his sense of reality. The court committed him to a private psychiatric facility indefinitely, an ending that left the public divided and the justice system questioned. Back in Willow Creek, the town gathered outside the shelter for Cooper's final hearing. A quiet crowd held signs reading "Hero, not harm" and "Justice for Delaney." Inside, Reagan stood before the board, hands shaking only slightly as she made her case. He didn't just carry a baby. He carried the truth. When no one else could be trusted, she trusted him, and he delivered. The board voted unanimously. Cooper would live. Released into Reagan's custody, officially adopted as a certified therapy dog. The town held a candlelight vigil for Delaney Hart in the town square. Her letter was read aloud, her words raw and trembling with the love of a mother who gave everything for her son. People cried openly, strangers and neighbors alike, united in shared outrage and heartbreak. Baby Miles, now legally renamed Miles Hart, was placed in foster care temporarily, but it didn't take long. Within weeks, Reagan filed for adoption. Lyle stepped down from the force quietly, his years of service closing on a case that changed him more than any other. Some truths, he told Reagan, aren't meant to be buried. No matter how powerful, the one doing the burying. Justice hadn't come through the system. It came through loyalty, through courage, through the unlikeliest of heroes, 4 paws, amber eyes, and a heart that never faltered. 1 year later, the town of Willow Creek felt different, softer, wiser. Wounds hadn't vanished, but healing had begun, quiet and steady, like morning light warming cold ground. The courthouse steps that once held protest signs were now blanketed, with flowers on the anniversary of Delaney Hart's vigil. Reagan Harper sat on a park bench, watching as a toddler toddled across the grass, giggling wildly as he chased a golden blur. Miles, barefoot, giggling, steady on his tiny legs, reached out for Cooper, who slowed just enough to let him catch a mouthful of fur before spinning away again, tail wagging like a flag of joy. Reagan smiled. She'd traded her badge for a different kind of calling. Motherhood, advocacy, and quiet courage. Her house, once bare and functional, was now filled with framed photographs of Delaney, of Miles growing each month, and of Cooper, always watching, always near. A soft breeze carried laughter from nearby picnickers and the sound of distant wind chimes. Lyle, retired and weathered but content, stopped by with coffee in hand. He handed one to Reagan. "He's fast," he said, nodding toward Miles. "Gets it from his mother." Reagan's voice caught for a second, then steadied. "He gets her. Fire, too." They sat in silence, watching the boy fall and rise again, unfazed. Cooper lay in the grass nearby, eyes ever alert, as if guarding something more precious than life itself. Later that evening, Reagan tucked Miles into bed. A dog-eared photo of Delaney rested on the nightstand. Reagan whispered the same promise, each night. "She loved you more than the whole world, little man. And we're going to make sure the world remembers her." Downstairs, Reagan sat on the porch as Cooper curled beside her, resting his head on her foot. She looked at the stars, wide, endless, still. From the journal Delaney left behind, a final line returned to her mind. If love could take shape, it would look like this: 4 paws, a heartbeat, and a will stronger than fear. And that, more than anything, had saved them all.